Are you dating a fearful avoidant attachment style and find that sometimes they shut down and even shut you out in those moments that you feel the most anxious or need them the most? Well, there are crucial reasons why a fearful avoidant attachment style actually shuts down, in particular to people expressing anxiety or the anxious attachment style individual. And by understanding these crucial behaviors and what's really going on beneath the surface, this video should give you a roadmap to preventing this dynamic, whether you are the fearful avoidant or the anxious attachment style. And my hope for you is that you can understand this and leverage this understanding in a really healthy way to prevent your relationships from falling apart. So the FA and the AP, they're dating, things seem to be going quite well. But over time, they spend a lot of time together and they get close very quickly and very intensely. And then the fearful avoidant starts to feel like they're losing their sense of self. So suddenly the fearful avoidant is pulling away. Then the AP can't really understand what's going on, gets frustrated, which only causes the FA to pull away more. And eventually, the FA either reemerges and comes back and doesn't really account for or reassure or validate the anxious, preoccupied person, but they sort of pick up from where they left off. Or alternatively, they get into a situation where the FA and AP are in a relationship and until they're just not. And the fearful avoidant completely trails off and the relationship sort of comes to a standstill, if not an end, especially if this is taking place early, like in the dating stage of a relationship. So, what's really happening here? What's going on? And how can we break this down from each individual's perspective? Well, what often starts out by happening in the fearful, avoidant, and anxious, preoccupied relationship is they make each other feel very seen. And both tend to really value depth of connection, presence, care, validation. And the FA and AP both tend to give each other a lot of this in that early dating stage. However, the fearful avoidant is somebody who tends to need to unplug more than the anxious preoccupied. They tend to need that time to themselves. They sort of go into their avoidance side and they do have an emotional bandwidth that only they can fill up at times just by like unplugging or getting their own needs met from creature comforts or, you know, even though that may not properly recharge them, it tends to be a subconscious comfort zone for them in the very least. And so, what often takes place is this relationship can start off going great. And then the fearful avoidance starts feeling like they're overextending themselves and they feel the need to pull back. And fearful avoidants tend to also be very big at giving in the dating stage. They will give a lot, they'll be really present, they'll care a lot, they'll really extend themselves out there despite their own boundaries and their own needs, and they often won't talk about them. The anxious preoccupied tends to more exclusively get their needs met from romantic partners. So they will feel when somebody pulls away from them, they won't be like, oh, great, this is my opportunity to unplug it as well and to recharge and spend time alone or with my friends or catch up on these other areas of my life. They'll tend to start panicking and they'll become hyper focused and often ruminate about their relationships to relationship to the fearful avoidant, which will then put this relationship dynamic in a situation where the FA needs to recharge. They'll pull back and then the AP will tend to come closer and sometimes express upset or blame or frustration. Now, the fearful avoidant will often internally feel like, well, I've just been giving you so much of my time and energy and effort. Like, is this not enough for you? Do you not see you're demanding more? And fearful avoidants tend to have a big wound or set of triggers around feeling like people are expectant of them, pressuring them, taking advantage of them or their time, wanting to just expect or take too much from them. And this will be extremely triggering for the or for the fearful avoidant person. The anxious preoccupied does not, they're not coming from a place where they're just expecting the FA to show up perfectly, but they are coming from a place where they fear the loss of connection and they'll create all these activating strategies and ways of trying to maintain proximity and get closer. And so the AP will often express their hurt, their frustration. The FA will feel more overwhelmed, like you're putting more on my plate. And what the FA doesn't realize that's really important in here for them to see is that in this process, they feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood. And they feel like their trust gets broken because they're like, well, this person's not like respecting what I need. Like, what about me? And they often feel like their boundaries are invaded or violated. And so then the AP will keep trying to maintain proximity and the FA will keep becoming more and more reclusive, similar to how the DA will tend to retreat a lot. However, it's for different reasons, right? The DA is so preoccupied with fearing being weak or vulnerable or losing their sense of independence and autonomy. The fearful avoidance is more triggered by like trust wounds, feeling unseen, unheard, like their boundaries are violated, like too much is expected of them, which is also their shadow because FAs put a lot of expectation and pressure on themselves. And so then what happens is you see either the fearful avoidant becomes so cold and completely disconnect because they go, okay, like this is just not working for me. And they'll seemingly just drop off the face of the earth, which is really hard for the AP because the FA and AP prior to that were obviously super connected the vast majority of the time in that dating stage, or the FA will reemerge after time, but not feel like things are worked through. And part of this is because they haven't consciously recognized their own part. Like they don't usually realize how they're actually feeling consciously. So they don't have room to say like, hey, I just need more time than you do to recharge. I just need time alone sometimes. And I need you to understand that and be okay with it a little bit. And when you don't, I feel like you're just pressuring me or expecting a lot from me or, taking advantage of my time and not appreciating all that I am putting into the relationship. And so this mismatch will really feel like a betrayal to the fearful avoidant, which is in the DA version of this anxious avoidant trap. You'll see they feel more of a fear. So, how we resolve this is by each person in the situation being able to understand their own part, what's going on inside of them, convert those feelings into words, learn to express them in healthy ways, learn to not personalize each other's patterns. Like when the AP comes closer to the FA, they're not trying to like hurt them and they're not trying to say, oh, I don't respect you or care about you or I want to invade your boundaries and I don't care about what they are. They're just coming from their own place of panic and personalizing the FA's actions and then trying to, mitigate the potential challenge in the relationship because they're fearing abandonment. And the FA is then receiving it as like, you're not paying attention to my boundaries. You don't see me. I can't trust you. But that's not what's happening. And both of them are really in this deep misunderstanding with one another. Now, this is one of many, many different situations. And I'll tell you another couple steps, like things that are really important to get out of. But if you want to do a really deep dive, I have so much in the Fearful, Avoidant, and Anxious Preoccupied course. It's about a 3-hour course, I think 3 and a bit hour course. You can definitely get through in like a week or so. And you can check it out for free for 7 days. And it has all of the different dynamics of like this relationship, what it looks like, what the core wounds of each attachment style are, how you can get out of it, the action steps, ways of specifically communicating to each other's core wounds, setting boundaries, reprogramming the wounds that come up for one another, understanding each other and having statements to bridge that gap. So you can feel like despite these problems and challenges, you have like an actual roadmap for how to deal with them and move through them and really support each other in healing, so that you can thrive and stay connected and keep things on the right track without losing your sense of self in the process. So anyways, the major themes at a high level are that you have to learn what your core wounds are and what your primary and secondary trigger patterns are within each other, like which of your core wounds just so happens to trigger your partner's core wounds and vice versa. And then how you can talk about these things in a way that becomes solution oriented, discuss what you need instead, understand each other's perceptions of the experience so that you're not taking each other's actions so personally. And through being able to convert our negative feelings into words, express them in a healthy way, communicate our needs, and then show up and create supportive strategies to move through these things with each other. It's really just those major things. It's like core wounds, needs communication, and strategies. And if you can really get those right, then a lot of these things that were once really challenging in this relationship can become simplified and easier to move through, to navigate, and to actually connect over and form a deeper bond because of long term, because you understand more deeply into each other's perceptions and fears and wounds and actually can validate them in each other and support each other through them, which is really beautiful. So anyways, I hope this makes sense. If you want to see more breakdowns of different dynamics in the AP-FA relationship, AP-DA, FADA, any of that stuff, please put them below and I will definitely do some more breakdowns for you guys. But again, you can check out that course for 7 days for free. The link is in the description box below, and it's through our all access membership pass that you get the access for 7 days. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching and being here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.